Welcome to They Not Like Us, the podcast that explores life in any way the journey takes us. What's the niche? There is no niche. Well, I guess we are the niche. We are conversation chameleons who follow the conversation wherever it may take us. Catch us live on Facebook and Twitch, or listen to the show on YouTube, Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
Hello, welcome to the show. I'm your host, Aaron. With me today, I've got Allan Misner. I'm not going to do much of an intro, Alan, because I'm going to ask you to do that yourself, if that's okay. So can you tell our guests a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, I'm 58, and I was a corporate guy until I realized that my corporate life was killing me. And so I decided I needed to do something. And I spent about 8 years trying, and I really couldn't figure it out. Why someone over the age of 40 couldn't just go to the gym, start eating right, and do what I had done when I was in my 20s, And so I decided to become a personal trainer to train myself. And all the specialties that I went after were just things I knew I needed as a next step in my journey. There are a lot of reasons why I finally got around to doing it right, we can get into, but I did. I kind of fixed myself. So I lost 66 pounds of fat, gained 11 pounds of muscle. So a complete body transformation at the age of 46 years old.
Wow.
This has allowed me to do a lot of things, but kind of the crazy part of it was when I got laid off from my corporate job because I had started a podcast and was trying to teach other people what I learned about my journey. I told my wife, I said, I don't want to go back. I don't like those people. I don't like talking about things like head count and span of control and layoffs and going into a room and sitting down with someone that is a great worker and doesn't deserve this and telling them, I'm sorry, but you don't work here anymore. I was getting tired of that, as you might imagine.
Yeah.
So I told my wife, I'm going to figure out this online personal training thing. This is going to be my gig. So I wrote a book called The Wellness Roadmap, and it won some awards. It's a really good book. I'm really proud of it. And that got some more attention. The podcast has gotten some attention. I've been able to grow my business. And then just because my wife and I were looking at our cost structure, which was built around being high level corporate guy, our cost structure did not fit the lifestyle of a personal trainer. So we decided that we were going to sell our house and move to Panama. And so I live on a Caribbean island that does not get hurricanes. So anyone in Florida, the United States, that knows how scary it is when a hurricane's coming into the Gulf, it can just wipe your whole house and investment off the face of the earth any given day during the months of June to November. I don't have that anymore. So I've been doing the coaching here, and my wife and I also bought a bed and breakfast. So we run Lula's Bed and Breakfast down here in Bocas del Toro, and I'm loving it.
It sounds really beautiful, actually, and it's such a big change. It's like almost the complete opposite of corporate life.
Yes.
What was there one single trigger that led to it, or was it a culmination of things over years that led you to that point where you just said enough's enough?
Well, it was not. I wouldn't say it was one point, but there was one point that was it was the complete flip in my brain, if you will, because, we all want stuff. I want that. I want this. The question is, do you want it bad enough to do what's necessary to get it? And I had made the decision I wanted to be healthier and more fit, but I had not wanted it bad enough until I was on the phone with my daughter. She was 20 years old, and she was a level 1 CrossFit coach. So she was like I was when I was in my 20s. I was the athlete. So she was literally reliving my life. And she's doing this CrossFit. She's doing some obstacle course racing. And we're on the phone one day, and she says, Daddy, would you come watch me do this CrossFit competition? And I'm like, that was just a hit in the gut. I was like, I'm not supposed to be a spectator in my daughter's life. I'm supposed to be a participant. And so, but I'm like, I couldn't sign up for that CrossFit competition. I couldn't do that, what she's doing. And I said, but I should be able to. That's the ridiculous part. So I started searching to figure out why I was struggling so hard with this, because I'd done many hard things. I made it to the C-suite of a Fortune 500 company before the age of 39. So I had done a lot of hard things. And I was like, why is this harder? And I realized it's not harder. The difference is when I wanted something like that with my career, I committed. I went all in, fanatical, obsessive. Nothing but this gets done until this gets done. And I had not done that with my health and fitness. And so that's when it happened. That's when I was like, okay, look, I am going to change this because I'm not the man, I'm not the father my daughter deserves. I'm not the man I deserve. And so I made the commitment, and I started doing research. There was nothing for guys over 40 trying to lose a lot of weight and get fit. And I'm not talking just like walking around fit. I'm talking CrossFit fit, being able to do those things that my daughter was doing so I could do them with her. And so I started doing, I went and got certified. And I was like, so I got my certification, I got my corrective exercise, I got my fitness nutrition, aging, functional aging. I just went for all these things that I knew would help me. And over the course of 11 months, I lost 66 pounds of fat, put on 11 pounds of muscle, and did a Tough Mudder with my daughter, which is a 12 to 13 mile run through bad terrain. And then they throw in 25 obstacles just to make it fun. And I wanted to run her race. I didn't want to just be there, and I didn't want her to stay back with me. And I didn't want her to, if you just say, go on, I'll finish on my own. I wanted to run with her. And so I got myself in the kind of shape that I could do that. And from that, obviously, that creates a whole different mindset of I just put fitness and health first in this. And then when it came to my career and I was trying to help other people online, and I'm like, I really like this online stuff I'm doing, the podcast and helping people and learning more about my body. I really enjoy this. I hate going into a boardroom. I hate going into a room, a conference room, and laying people off. I just don't want to do this anymore. So when they laid me off, I had a pivot point. And that pivot point was, do I choose money or do I choose myself? And I chose myself. And then when my house that we were paying a lot of money for in the United States on the beach it was so expensive. And I'm like, okay, do I choose the house or do I choose myself? And so we sold the house and we moved to Panama. And so now my decisions they're never weighted towards money anymore. They're never weighted towards career. I don't have anything to prove, but I don't only have one body. I have one me. And so I pick me every time now.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And I think there's so many people out there who don't choose themselves and who suffer for it, really. Yeah, not just physically, but I'd say even more so mentally and emotionally with it. If you get stuck in a job that you do not enjoy for a long time, and you're neglecting your physical health, your relationships, your mental health and well-being, that can take a toll on you.
Yeah.
How has it affected your mental health and your I know your physical, I mean the weight loss and everything speaks for itself with how you transform physically, but how has that helped you mentally as well? How are you now compared to when you were back in that C-suite and probably not really enjoying life as much?
Okay, so I told you about the Tough Mudder.
Yeah.
And so what a lot of people don't even know about the Tough Mudder is that they have like electricity, they have cold water, they have heights, they have swimming, they have dark tunnels. They have a lot of things that will mess with your mind. Okay. And a lot of people can't do them. They like flip out. They're like, no, I'm scared of heights, or I'm scared of this, or I'm scared of that. Every human being on this earth is afraid of electricity. So one of the last obstacles on the Tough Mudder, it was this obstacle that had all these wires hanging down. And underneath it was a muddy pit, and the mud pit had rows. So you couldn't just run through it. You had to be careful of your feet. Obviously, the electrodes are hanging down. And so we're coming up on this obstacle, and I see this guy get hit, and he hits his face in the mud. And he pops right back up and hits it again. He's down. So you got about 20 or 30 guys standing here, all looking at this obstacle with trepidation, like terrified. Okay. And my daughter and I are running up to this group, and she's like, "What do you want to do?" I'm like, "Run around them." She says, "We're not going to wait." I said, "No, just run around them." So she goes around to the left, I go around to the right. And when we come back together, I grab her hand, and the two of us run through together. And we got hit. You could feel it, but we got through it. And then we ran, jumped over the fire. We finished the race holding hands. Okay. Now, there are 3 events in my life that I will tell you with my daughter are probably the most precious in my life. And that's one of them. The other was one of the others was when she was first born. She was born OP, which means face up. And so those are a little bit distressed coming out. So they were a little concerned about her, and they gave her the test they give the kid right away, and she didn't pass it. But they're like, that's okay. She's under some trauma, so we'll test her again. So I took her over to the table. I reached down, and she grabbed my pinky with her hands. Her little fingers wrapped around my pinky. And then she tested fine. Okay. And then the third one was when she got married about 2 years ago, and I'm walking her down the aisle. And I know in my heart, if I had not done what I had done when I was 45, I might not be walking her down that aisle at the age of 51. So when you ask me what it's done, it has given me everything. I mean, literally everything.
Yeah.
I am so blessed. And it's one of the things that I think most of us overlook is that the human body is like the best gift you've ever received.
Yeah.
Okay. My second favorite is this Stanley thermos that I can keep my coffee in. But the first is the human body, because it's a machine that can repair itself. It's a machine that can improve itself. And all you have to do is give it the right inputs, and it can just get better and better and better. And there's nothing like that in the world.
No, absolutely. It is quite amazing what you can do with the human body. As long as your mind's in the game, you can do so much. And I have a daughter myself, so I completely understand the motivation as well as you get older to stay fit and healthy and to be a big part of their life. Especially as they grow up, you don't want to not be able to be a part of it and contribute. And if you let your physical health deteriorate, then it's going to be very difficult to be a part of it.
Yeah, my daughter's in her lower 30s right now. We have 4 kids between the two of us, my wife now, and so they're all in their 30s, and none of them have had babies. Okay. So and I'm, like I said, I'm 58. So if they start having babies now, by the time their babies are 19, 20 years old and doing whatever crazy thing that is, because we didn't have Tough Mudders when I was younger. No. Whatever that is, I'm likely to be very close to 80 years old. But you know what? I'm going to participate.
I love that. Yeah. So your training then, how does that look, Alan? What kind of training do you do? Do you do a sort of a blended training? Obviously, you mentioned your daughter does CrossFit. Is that something that you do, or do you have a blend?
I personally did CrossFit for a while, and what I learned from that is it is a good discipline if you have good coaches.
Yeah.
It is a terrible discipline if you do not. And so I was at a CrossFit, and many of the coaches were pretty good. The guy who was doing the writing of the WOD each day, not so much. He wrote some terrible WODs. Okay, not all of them, but some. And the only reason I really knew that was because when I traveled, I would drop into different CrossFits, and so I would meet other coaches that were like miles and miles above what anyone at the box I went to was like. In fact, I walked into one gym, and we were doing the row. The ERG, what do they call it? Concept 2.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm doing the pulls the way I'd always done the pulls. Coaches never said, none of my coaches ever said anything about doing this. And he came over to me and he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, I don't know. What do you mean? He's like, "You're strong." And I'm like, "Yeah." He said, pull. That's all you want to do is pull. He said, everything's the pull. And so he's like, I want you to just like you were going to do, just like you were going to do a squat, like just push, just pull or deadlift. And so I did that like really hard. And then because I put out that energy, I wasn't able to go back before the flywheel came back around. So he said, just sit there. And then the next breath, go back in. And so it was a hard pull and I go back in. I was taking a calorie a pull. Okay. Now, if you've done CrossFit, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay. And I was in my 50s doing this. Okay. So when I went back to my box and they gave us an AMRAP that included the ERG, and they're like, you got to do 30 calories. That's just 30 pulls. I was done in 30 seconds, where it would take me about a minute and a half before. So the guy cut a minute off of, a 30 calorie row, just like that.
Yeah, just the quality over quantity.
Just a little thing. Yeah, just a little thing. And so I realized if you have good coaches at a box, it can be perfectly fine. If you have bad, so one of the bad WODs, and this is one of the last times I trained there, was he had deadlifts. It was one of my best lifts. Because again, I'm strong, I can pull. He did deadlifts for strength. Now, he gave us the increments, and you start at 60% of your 1 rep max, and you go up. Now, the problem we had was we just didn't have enough of the 5s and 10s. And so everybody else was hoarding the 5s and 10s, and I was on my own bar because no one else was pulling the weight I was pulling. And so then I'm looking for 5s or 10s, and there aren't. So I'm adding 25s. Okay. So you add 25s, that's 50 pounds every time I went up on my deadlift. Yeah. So my last pull, I was doing about 110% of my 1 rep max for 3. Okay. And I felt pretty good about it. And then comes the Metcon, and they lay out the Metcon, and it's hang cleans, toes to bar, 500-meter run, AMRAP.
Yeah.
And my lower back was already toast from the deadlifts. I had good form, but still, it was fatigued. My core was fatigued. That just killed me. I mean, it literally just laid me out. The problem was I lived a mile from the box, and I usually walk to the box in the morning. And then here I am. I have to walk home, and my lower backs just gave out. And so it's my fault because it was ego. It was stupid. But it was also a bad WOD.
Yeah. I've been there with ego and stuff. And when you're training with other people as well, or there's other people in a class, it kind of, that competitive nature comes out, and it pushes you to want to do that more when you probably should rein it in a little bit.
Yeah.
So because I completely understand that, because I did I did 2 discs in my back, my L4 and L5, so they collapsed. But I have to work around that when I'm training, because I still train. I just have to be careful, because it flares up every now and again or whatever. I can trigger it by deadlifting. But some days, if I'm training with somebody and they're going a bit heavier, then that ego kicks in, and then I end up hurting myself.
There you go. Yeah,
it's horrible.
It's hard. Yeah, they made us partner up one time, and they were like, so we're walking up, and he was strong too, and we were going to do, I think it was an EMOM, and it was like you had to do 5 deadlifts in an EMOM. And I just walked up to him. I said, "Okay." I said, "Do you want to do 315 or more?" And he's like, "What?" And I'm like, "Well, I know you could pull 315." He's like, "Yeah, but this is an EMOM, dude. I'm not pulling 315." I'm like, "Okay, what do you want?" He's like, 225, like everybody else. I'm like, "Okay." But again, that's ego. So one thing that has fundamentally changed about the way I look at fitness is, and it's funny because CrossFit is a sport where they say they're when they do their games, they're going to name the fittest man and fittest woman on earth. That's their moniker. Okay, so that's supposed to be what fitness is. But I have a different definition of fitness. Okay, and it works like this. So my grandfather loved golf, like loved it more than people. And I think that's why he got divorced. But he lived on a golf course, and he played golf every day until he turned 80. And then I was visiting him, and he wasn't playing. I said, "Why aren't you going out with the guys to play golf?" He said, "Well, I can't anymore. I can't swing the clubs. My balance is off. I don't have the strength." I'm like, "Well, do you want to go work on it?" He's like, "No, I can't try it. I can't do it. I tried." So he quit golf at 80. And a lot of people say, "Well, okay, 80 years old. Okay, that's okay." He lived till he was 95.
Wow.
So the last 15 years of his life, he didn't get to do the thing he loved the most. Now you flash forward 5 years, he's 90. He's living in an assisted care apartment. So he has his own apartment, and there's people he can call when he needs help. He cannot get from his chair to the bathroom in time if he figures he has to go. So he has to call them to clean him up because he can't even do that. He lived the last 5 years of his life that way. And I didn't get to see him because he was too embarrassed to have people over to his house. Okay, so I tell people I want to be able to wipe my own ass when I'm 105. Okay, that's fitness.
Yeah,
being able to open your own pickle jar, that's fitness. Being able to put your luggage in the overhead bin by yourself, that's fitness. Doing the sport you love as long as you want to, that's fitness. So instead of thinking of fitness as, oh, I've got to be as fit as a CrossFit athlete, no, you need to be fit enough to live your life, to do the things you need and want. If my wife were to fall in our place, because again, I'm on a Caribbean island, it's a third world country, there's no ambulance to call.
Wow.
I've got to be able to get her into the car, pick her up, get her into the car, and take her to the hospital. So that's my job for the rest of my life. I have to be fit enough to do that. So that's why I do deadlifts. That's why I do squats. Okay, I need stamina to do things that I need to do. So that's why I do long, slow stamina work. I do HIIT workouts. I do the things that are necessary to build the body that I need to have to live the life I deserve. That's fit for task.
Yeah, that's it. It's maintaining that quality of life, isn't it? Because, it's all very well living till you're 80, 90, but if you spend 20 years not being able to do anything, then there's no quality of life there.
Right. I mean, I feel so bad for my grandfather that's how he spent the last parts of his life. But, I don't want that for me. I don't want that for my kids. I don't want them to not be able, for me to be embarrassed to see my kids or grandkids because I've got issues with my health or fitness. I want to be rolling around on the floor with them. Whatever they're doing when they're 20, I want to be doing that. If I take them to the zoo and they're running around like wild animals, I'm running around with them.
Love that. Yeah. You're so right. And I mean, as I've got older, that's where since I've had my daughter as well, so the last sort of 7 years, that's where mine's going, is that future picture, being able to do what I can do now, then hopefully, or at least as near to it as possible. So
yeah, because I'll tell this short story. Our oldest boy, he married a girl who had a child. Okay, so when I first met Tammy and I was coming around, this little girl was terrified of me. I don't know why, but she wouldn't breathe around me. She wouldn't talk. She wouldn't eat. She wouldn't move when she was around me. She was like terrified. And I'm like, I have to fix this. I mean, this is kind of my granddaughter now, so I need to fix this. So she loves SpongeBob, the cartoon SpongeBob. She loved it. Okay, so I'm like, one Saturday I'm sitting there and I get my laptop out and I look on YouTube and I find some SpongeBob shows. And so I'm like, okay, so I walk over and I sit down on the tile floor and I start watching SpongeBob. And then she comes over and sits down beside me. And I scooch over a little bit. And so we're watching the episode of SpongeBob. When that episode's over, I ask her, would you like to watch another? And she said, yes, please. First word she ever said to me, yes, please. We watched another episode. Now, if you ask a lot of 50-year-olds, because I think, well, at the time, it's probably about 50. If you ask a lot of 50-year-olds, would they go sit down on a tile floor for 45 minutes watching cartoons with their grandchild? They'd say, well, I'm not getting down unless I have a plan to get back up. And sitting on a tile floor is so uncomfortable. I'm like, yeah, but if you've got the mobility and you're in it, then you do it. And I probably squirmed around a good bit. That's good. It's movement. But the ability to get down on the floor and get back up, the ability to sit there with your grandchild on the floor. So you're not sitting in a rocking chair watching them live their lives. You're in their world at their level. It's a whole different way to have a relationship with a kid.
Yeah, and it makes a difference to them when you come down to their level and you're doing what they're doing and getting involved, actively involved in what they're doing. That's
Yeah.
a big change than trying to direct them to do what you want them to do. It's completely different. I find that. Just this morning, actually, me and my daughter, we've just been rolling down the hill. She's been pushing me down the hill, so it's been good fun. But that's the kind of things that you want to be able to do, isn't it? So.
Right. And those will be the memories that she has until we decide if we're going to give her other memories, you know? And because I was talking to a guy, and for a lot of people, the change, when they change themselves, they can almost always point to an event. And the event of the big change is usually not aspirational. It's usually fear-based. And so what had happened to this guy was he was over 500 pounds and he had all kinds of ailments because of that obesity problem. And something happened to him and he ended up going to the hospital and he was in the ICU and he said he was laying in the bed and he looked over and he saw his wife and his two daughters, and his two daughters wouldn't even look at it. They were so upset by what was happening, they couldn't even look at their father. And he's laying there on that hospital bed thinking, this might be the last memory they ever have of me if I don't change. So we're making memories with our kids by living our lives and the way we live our lives. And so if you want them to have good memories, live a good life.
Yeah. Yeah. It's sobering, isn't it, when you have their moments, I suppose, for people and they really realize, what impact it's having on the family and stuff. Coming to that then, what kind of support? So you got the 40 Plus Fitness. What do you do with your clients? Is it hands-on stuff? Is it online stuff? Or is it a bit of both?
Right now, all of it's online. When I first moved to Bocas, there was a gym that was about to go under, and I bought the gym and I ran it for a while. I ran it, and then was getting it better and better. And then COVID hit. We were closed for 11 months. I kept the space, which was not cheap. And then when we reopened, I got it going. We went for about a year. We were doing okay. I thought we were turning a corner. And then my landlord raised my rent again. So right before COVID, he had raised it. Now, he didn't know COVID was coming. So he raised it 25%. I'm like, okay. And then here we are a year after COVID, he raises it again, 44%.
Wow.
So I walk in, I'm like, when he told me he was raising the rent that much, I'm like, hey, he said, well, that's market. I said, well, you're raising my rent in 13 operating months, 73%. I said, there's no pass through. I can't pass that through to clients. So this just puts me under. And he's like, well, that's the market. So I'm like, well, okay, if it's market, I'm going to look around. And I found a better space and I moved into a better space. And so I was pretty happy. We did a good build out. I had to invest some more money, but built a good build out. And then 3 other gyms opened within 250 meters of my gym. One was a fight gym, one was a private studio, and one was a lifting gym. And so everybody wanted the new thing, and they were in a better walk-up space for the tourist traffic. So we lost all walk-up traffic that we would usually have. And then all the folks that could afford the higher priced gyms went there because their equipment was newer and nicer. And so I thought I could outlast them. I tried for about 3 months and realized I couldn't do it. So I ended up selling because my new landlord really did want a gym in that space. Once I gave him the idea that that's what I was going to do, they asked me, they're like, would you sell us your equipment so we can run a gym here? And I said, I'll do better. I'll sell you the name, likeness, logos, website, all of it with the equipment. And the only thing I want is that rack, a set of dumbbells. You'll have a complete set. I think I got a Olympic bar and maybe 300 pounds of weight. And then I bought some more. But so I built my own home studio at Lula's. It's in our what would have been in a living room of our apartment is now my gym. But so I made it a win-win. I still ended up with a studio gym that I can occasionally train people. But for the most part, I would say 99% of my training is done online. And what we're doing here is for most people, they are coming over for weight loss. That tends to be the most common. But occasionally I get people who are also interested in strength or performance. So I had a guy who's a bicyclist. he does each year they do these rides. He does these rides with these guys on bikes, and so he had this 140-mile run they were going to do, a straight line shot. He said everybody else in the group was like 10 years younger than him, and he had put on like 15 pounds, and so he was like, I know I'm not going to be able to keep up with the group, and this is the kind of group that will leave you. These are the guys, really good friends that will leave you. They'll come back and get you with a car, and then they will laugh at you for the whole year. So he's like, he didn't want to just ride with them. When you're riding with a group like that, there's times you have to be at the front and be the windbreak. And so he wanted to be able to ride their race, similar to the concept I had. I want to be able to run my daughter's race. So we trained him up. I told him, I said, I'm not a biking coach. He says, well, no, I know if I just build power in my legs and I lose 15 pounds, I'll be ready for that ride. And so sometimes there's a little bit of performance involved in it, but for the most part, I'd say 90% of my clients, it's weight loss that they're interested in.
Okay. And aside from the physical training and guidance that side, do you do the nutrition side as well, Alan?
Yeah. I kind of look at it from three perspectives. Well, maybe four if you want to break it down. But the first one is nutrition. The second one then is going to be fitness. The third is mindset, and that's probably the most important one.
Yeah,
and
I'd
then
agree.
and then the fourth one, and this is somewhat optional for some clients because they don't really have problems in there, but it's self-care. So are you getting enough sleep? How are you managing your stress? How's your self-talk? That kind of thing. So for some of them, it's across all four of those areas. But I'm always touching at least three.
How do you manage that? Is that a lot of one-to-one conversations? Is it just like weekly check-ins, or is it how do you manage that kind of relationship?
I've tried group stuff online, and it just never sings. It works, but it doesn't work for me the way that I feel like I could do more. When we got someone in a group environment, they're kind of hiding behind everybody else, and if they're not doing well, they're just quiet. When they're doing well, they're loud. And so you got a lot of loud people and a few quiet people, and now you're looking for the quiet people. And then you're having to message them, what's going on? You weren't loud. And so what I found is I actually just enjoy having fewer clients and having more one-on-one interaction with them. So my basic program is a 12-week program, and it is a one-on-one program. Inside the app that I use for my programming and tracking, there is a group function now. I didn't have that before. So I do put them into a group forum so they can all interact with each other. But I don't really use that as a coaching medium beyond occasionally having a group call where I'll go over something that I think everybody needs to hear. And I'll post that video in there. But so they'll come on a group call if they want to, and then I post it in there so they can watch it later. But most of what I do is really about the one-on-one interaction, me seeing what's working and what's not working and helping them tweak it, because there's not a one set way to do all of this. We're all a little unique, all a little different. Someone can sit there and just say, I'm going to count calories, and the weight just falls off. Someone out there will say they'll be counting calories, they'll get down to 1,200 and they're not losing any weight at all. And you're like, okay, let's talk about your fitness. Like, I'm walking this, I'm doing this. I'm like, they're doing everything that mathematically makes sense. And then you start talking to them about their sleep, and it's like, no, I don't sleep. I've got menopause, and so I'm not sleeping. And I'm like, okay, that's probably the problem. Your hormones are all out of whack if you're not sleeping. So let's start working on your sleep. Whereas if I had them in a group, I might not pick up on what's going on with them. And so I prefer the one-on-one, and that's what I do. And I also keep my client load relatively low because I want to be able to give each of them the attention they deserve so they can get the change that they need.
Yeah, I think that's important, especially if people are going to sort of maintain that kind of level of change in their life. I think they need that one-to-one, and they need that nuanced interaction that's specific to their life and their needs and what's happening in their life, etc. I think if you just almost, these group sessions are almost cookie cutter a little bit, aren't they? They're a little bit too generic, and I think people
they can be. I mean, if you get people who are willing to put themselves out there, then a group dynamic can be awesome. So if you were doing a business coaching, because I do some of that too, and you get a group dynamic, it's beautiful because people are asking questions, people are doing follow-on questions, people are sharing their experiences, and more people are willing to do that in a business coaching setting. When we're talking about weight loss, we're talking about disease, and we're talking about other things, people are a lot less willing to stand out and say, yeah, my name is Bob and I'm 50 pounds overweight. To say they want to lose 50 pounds is to admit that they are 50 pounds overweight, and maybe more, because most people won't shoot for the real target. They'll shoot for what they think they need. And so they get uncomfortable to sit there and admit that, okay, they're not perfect. So I spend a lot of time when I was on group calls, I spent a lot of time showing them I'm not perfect. Okay. You don't have to be perfect, but it's really hard to get people to engage in a group when it's health and fitness, unless it's like a class. If it's a class and you're moving and you're cheering them and all that works. And anyone that wants to improve their fitness and they're struggling with motivation, I would encourage them, find a class, find a group, get involved with them. That's accountability at that level. Hire a coach. That's accountability at a leader level. And so if you're getting accountability, that's going to keep you going for longer. And then you can work on the skills of self-efficacy, where this becomes a part of who you are and how you do things. And then motivation doesn't become a problem. It's not a problem anymore because you've got the accountability and you know what you're doing, and you just do it. So that's where I'm trying to move people is, okay, yeah, there's accountability because I'm on you. Okay, accountability is my thing. I'm on you. There's a plan. Do the plan. Join groups. I got the group here. You can use them or you can find others. Join a class, do something. Yes. I work that into their programming. So someone tells me, what was he doing? He's doing rugby. He's playing rugby. Okay. So one of my clients now, once he got back into rugby, we got him lifting, got him moving. He's feeling good. He's like, the knees are feeling really, really good. So I'm going to go back out and start playing rugby. Okay. That's your Wednesday workout. Go play rugby. Yeah, that was his HIIT workout day, but I moved that to Saturday. So I said, okay, do your rugby on Wednesday and you do HIIT training on Saturday. And so, beyond that, then we want to start moving them to self-efficacy. So we start putting strategies and tactics to reduce friction on things that you should be doing and increase friction on things you shouldn't be doing. And then that makes it easier and easier and easier for you to do the things. And then when all those things become your habits and your values, so it's a habit to get up in the morning and go work out, then you identify as someone who does that. So the best example I can give is someone starts out walking. Okay, so I'm going to walk for half an hour after work. They start walking and then they decide, well, I'm going to jog to that stop sign or that post. And so they do a little jog. They add a little jog to it. And so each time they go out, they try to add a little bit more of a jog and a little bit more of a jog. And then they decide, because they've been doing this for a while, that they might like to do a 5K race. So they sign up for one of the local 5K races and they kind of train up for it a little bit. And then they go do the race. They get the t-shirt, they get the medal, and they're like, this was fun. I enjoyed this. And so now they begin to identify as a runner. And what do runners do? They run. What do CrossFitters do? They CrossFit. And they don't think about it. If your class, like we all, everybody came in for the classes in CrossFit, I was in the 5 a.m. and that's just what I did. I got up in the morning and I went over to CrossFit. And it was the same people in there all the time. It was a 5 o'clock crew. And they were my crew. And so, we all trained together. We all did our thing. But once you identify as the person that you're supposed to be, you just do the stuff. There's no motivation. And so a lot of times I'm on Facebook and someone who's really struggling, like I can't stick to my diet. I can't stick to my workout routine. I keep falling off the wagon. And you're going to have somebody that's going to chime in who's fit, has never had a problem. You just need discipline. Like that's just something you go buy at Walmart. You can't buy it. You can't buy discipline. But if you build if you build self-efficacy by starting with accountability, once you have that self-efficacy, once you identify as that person, that's what they're actually talking about. They just don't know that there's steps you have to take to get there. You can't just turn it on. They did that sometime, maybe back when they were 14. They first walked into a gym and they started doing some stuff, and their friends are in there with them, and they're all lifting weights. And it just happened that that guy has friends that are weightlifters instead of friends that are out doing pot and robbing convenience stores. So he happened to have the peers that kept him accountable until he developed the habits and values of being a strength trainer, a weightlifter. And so I think a lot of people miss that is, yes, many of us come into the game healthy and fit. And if we surround ourselves with the right people, we stay that way. If we don't, we end up somewhere else. And the path to get back there is not just this do it. It's a step change of, okay, I hire a coach to keep me accountable. I'm showing up at the gym on a regular basis. I'm eating better. I join a spin class. I join a water aerobics class. I start doing some CrossFit or start playing rugby. And then because I'm doing this, I'm like, how do I make this easier? Well, if I go to bed half an hour earlier, it's easier to get up half an hour earlier. So you start going to bed a little earlier. You pack your gym bag the night before. And so you do these strategies and tactics that remove friction from things you're supposed to do. You remove all the junk from your cupboards and refrigerators. So when you go home, there's no cookies and crisps and all that stuff. There's just good food. And now you're eating good food because there's friction to you getting something else. And so we put those strategies and tactics in place as self-management. And then over time, we build the habits. And then we just don't even think about not doing it. The alarm goes off at 5:30. We get up. Our clothes are already set out. We put them on and we go do our thing because that's who we are.
I like that. And I'm glad you put it that way because I always thought, it's kind of discipline. So I've trained myself since I was 16 years of age. I just go to the gym with my friends. And it's actually, thinking about it, it's become part of my social life, actually.
Yeah.
I go there to see my friends and hang out with my friends and, and that's what I do socially. So it's become part of my routine, my life. If I don't do it, I actually feel a bit off because I haven't had that. I haven't had the physical exercise to make me feel good in that way, but I also haven't had the social element. So, and when it comes to me, I do think, it's discipline, but it's not in a lot of ways, is it? Because it's part of my life, and I've made it part of my life, and it's ingrained in my life for so long, and that's why I do it. So yeah, removing the barriers and stuff like that makes much more sense to me. And I suppose we all have that with life and work and families and everything else. We have so much piling on top of us, and our willpower or things that we have to do and we feel like we got to do, and just adding an extra layer, especially if you've not done anything like that for years, can overwhelm people, I suppose, and lead them to just cutting it out because it was easier to get rid of it sometimes.
Well, right, because no one's going to miss it.
Yeah.
But you. And so like here was a perfect example. Okay, so I'm working 12-hour days at my job. Okay, usually 5 to 6 days a week, 12-hour days at this corporate job. So when I made the commitment that I was had to fix myself, I had a gym membership by my apartment, which was an hour away, but I decided I needed to have a gym membership right there at my work too, or both. I needed both. So I now had 2 gym memberships. That removes friction. Okay. Then I told my boss, I said, I'm going to be taking lunch from 2 to 3 every day so I can go lift weights here at the gym that's right across the street. And I marked it on my calendar that I was out of office for that hour. That was a meeting. So I scheduled a meeting with the boss, this guy, the CEO of my life. And I had a meeting with him, and it was the most important meeting of my day. I was not going to skip that meeting. Okay. Now, occasionally he was the CFO. So I reported the CFO. He would occasionally call me right at 2:00. It was really weird. So I'm already dressed. I'm in my gym clothes, and he's calling me. He's like, so I need you to come up here. I'm like, okay. So I'm walking through the C-suite. So this is the God pod of the company. This is where all the bigwigs are. I'm walking through there in my gym shorts and T-shirts and tennis shoes. And sometimes I walk in his office. He says, "What is this?" I said, "Well, 2 to 3. It's my lunch hour. I'm headed over to the gym." And so he would say, "Okay, well, I need this." I'm like, "Well, do you need it before 4:00?" And he said, "No." I said, "Okay, I'm going to go get my workout in. I'll have it to you before 4:00." And then I'd go get my workout in. So I set a meeting, and that meeting was a priority for me. And so I would just negotiate with anyone else that I had to report to as well, that this is my current schedule. Does that work for you? And most of the time they were like, yes. But you just had to ask. You had to have the guts to sit there and say, oh, because most people would have gone downstairs, put their suit back on, and went back to their desk and did the thing. Skipped their workout that day because, that job was more important. But at that frame of mind, I told you, I picked me. Okay, so every day I picked me, and I was in the gym. Now I picked 2:30 to 2 to 3 because the only people that were in the gym during that time were retirees and a couple college kids. So I had full access to all of the equipment, especially the heavy lifting equipment. And so I could go in and do my whole workout in 45 minutes, take a shower, and be back at my desk. And so that's the removing friction. That's the stepping up and saying, no, this is the priority. And if other things are going on, I just have to figure it out. So I traveled a lot for work, like at times 90%. Now, people throw out these percentages and it doesn't really resonate with a lot of people, but 90% travel means I'm home one weekend a month. So that could have been my perfect excuse, right? I'm gone all the time. I can't get to the gym. No, that just meant I had to do a little bit of work. So as I was planning my travel, I had to look for hotels that had access to good gyms. Was there a gym close by I could get a day pass? Was there a gym associated with maybe they had free passes? Or did they have a good gym as a part of the hotel? Okay, so I might stay further away from the office just to have access to a really good gym. And then I would look around the area where I was staying, and I would find restaurants and look up their menus and say, okay, what do I want for dinner on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday? What's the best choice for me at each of these restaurants? So when they come out and they want my order, I already know what I want. I'm not sitting there flipping through the pasta and saying, oh, that lasagna looks great. I've already decided that I'm having the baked fish, vegetables, and a salad. And so that's what I mean about that being the CEO of your life is you do have to put yourself as a priority and then do the things that make it easy.
Yeah, I think if we get caught in that sort of last minute moment, especially with like for me, I'm guilty of it with food. And you haven't planned anything out or thought anything. They're the moments when you crumble and you end up eating things you shouldn't be eating, and then you feel bad for it afterwards. And
I would keep food in my truck. I keep food in my desk. I have a filing cabinet over here. I've got tuna and walnuts, a little refrigerator over here. And so I make sure I have the types of food that I need around. Even when it was my truck, I had little bags of nuts and snacks and things, jerky and things in my truck. So if I found myself hungry, I didn't have to stop at a convenience store or fast food. I already had what I needed. And those were the little bridges of nutrition. It's like, okay, I am hungry and I can't wait till 6:00 to eat. So this little snack will be just enough to get me going. I don't need to go stop somewhere where I'd eat probably 3 or 4 times this in calories and not nearly the nutritional value. So you look at, and that's a part of this process as you're changing, because you're going to make mistakes. We're all human. And so one of the procedures I teach to my clients processes I call the slip to success. And it works like this. So you made a mistake. Okay. You didn't have anything prepared and you're really, really hungry and you didn't want to cook. So you picked up your phone and you went online to one of the ordering places, Grubhub or Uber Eats or whatever's there. And you click on there and you start looking around and you order what you want and they deliver it, bang, right there. And you get done, you're like, that really wasn't what I should have eaten today. You step on the scale the next day and you're like, crap. Okay, you made a mistake. That's okay. We're all human. So what you need to do is forgive yourself. That's the first step. People don't do this. They skip this. They're like, oh, I screwed up. And now there's this this bad man in your head. Okay. When I was overweight and I wanted to change, I called myself the fat bastard. That's who that voice is in my head. He's the fat bastard. Okay. And he's miserable and I don't like him. And he says terrible, terrible things, things that I would never say to my best friends. I wouldn't even say those things to my enemies, but I say them to myself. Okay. And so the fat bastard would tell me, you idiot, you should have done better. You should have done better. And I don't learn anything. The slip to success is forgive yourself. Get that guy out of your head. It happened. I can't fix it. I can fix it going forward. What did I learn? Okay. Just having a small, easy snack, like a small bag of nuts in my case, in my backpack, in my desk, in my truck. If I have that there and I get hungry, I can nibble on that. If I do just a little bit of batch cooking on the weekend, just any weekend, and then I take and I make a lot of something that I can eat, and I put some of that away in the freezer. Then when I come home and I don't feel like cooking, I can go to my freezer and say, what's here? Here's this eggplant lasagna I made. I'll eat that. That's better than trying to call Grubhub. Okay. And so now you've come up with a decision, an action plan, and then you just go do it. It's like, okay, so what do I need to do? Well, okay, Saturday I need to shop, Sunday I need to batch cook, and I'll make sure on Saturday buy some nuts. I'll bag them all up and I'll put them everywhere I might need them. And now I have a plan and I'm acting on it. So when you slip up, that's only a failure if you quit. That's only a failure if you let the fat bastard talk you out of change. And so if you step up and say, okay, I forgive myself. I'm a human. I made a mistake. I can fix this. What are things I could do to remove friction from the things I should be doing, add friction to the things that I shouldn't be doing, and then you carry that plan out. And if you do this consistently, all of your failures then become future successes.
Yeah, I like that approach. I like that approach a lot. And I think that is part of the problem. It's too easy to do the wrong thing, to get sort of takeouts and stuff like that. And if you have nothing prepared, you'll just take the easy route 9 times out of 10 if you're tired and you're in that point where you're just really hungry and stuff like that. So I think removing the friction and adding friction to the what was the easy thing to get fast food and stuff makes a big change. And the stuff you're saying about the self-talk, I think we're all guilty of that negative self-talk. And I've been there myself where I've fallen off the wagon on a diet or something like that. And then I'm really negative about myself. And then I'm quite emotional. Like, it's just something emotional about food, isn't it? I don't know what it is, but it's that emotional connection to food. And then you feel awful. But then the next day you're just like, well, doesn't matter now. I've already failed sort of attitude, and then you eat more junk, and then it just becomes a cycle and end up back where you were.
Yeah, that's that guy. That's that guy. I don't know what you want to call yours, but
yeah, I don't know, but he's always there. He's always there. Just
name him. That's the point. Go ahead and name him, and know that he's someone you don't need in your life.
Yeah.
Okay. Give him a name, and then realize when he starts talking, it's like, hey, you're not part of my social circle anymore. The guys at the gym, that's my social circle. My wife is my social circle. My daughter is my social circle. You're not my social circle anymore.
Yeah, I like that. I'm going to try that. I'm not going to come up with a name on the spot because I'll just embarrass myself. But I'll have a think about it. But I like that a lot. Moving on to your podcast, then, Alan. What can you tell us about your podcast?
Okay. Well, it's a mix of interviews and solo shows. I do have a co-host I brought on a couple years ago. Her name's Rachel. She's in her 50s also. She's a run coach. She's a coach and a run coach, but she focuses on endurance sports, and running is her main thing. I wanted her on this show just for the woman's opinion, because about 67% of my listeners are female, maybe 65, 67. So I wanted someone on there where we could, after I had an interview or after I did a solo show, the two of us could kind of discuss it, summarize it a bit, and get some of her insights into the talk. But on every interview that I do, I either have to deeply research the guest or I read their book. And so over the course of almost 9 years of doing this, I have literally read over 400 books on health and fitness. And when the guests come on, they know I read their book, because the questions I'm asking are not the questions that they're asked on any other show. So if you see a guest that's on my show and you've heard them on multiple podcasts, because when someone issues a book, they go the route and they want to get on all the different podcasts, my interview is going to be completely unique from anything you're hearing anywhere else, because I'm not going to ask the 5 questions they put on their one sheet. I'm going to ask them detailed questions, and we're going to get into the weeds on some of this stuff. And so I really pride myself by making sure we leave someone every episode with actionable something to do. And so I bring on the best guests that I can possibly get. I've been very fortunate to have grown the podcast to a point where I'm getting some really good names, really good people. Sal from Mind Pump, Dave Asprey, Tony Horton. I've had, Alan Aragon. I've had some really high profile guests on the show because their agents know, their publicists know, okay, Alan actually asks you fun questions. You're actually going to enjoy this podcast. All the other podcasts, you're saying the same thing over and over and over, but for this podcast, it's going to be different. And so I dig deep. We profile what their topic is, get into it. And then for the solo shows, that's more of a teaching moment stuff. I tend to get into mindset and motivation a lot more with those episodes. So I think it's a good blend. Sometimes I do other stuff, but it's really just about what do I think is top of mind, and then I deep dive into it. And so again, a lot of research into, why is this the way it is? What is it? How can we do this? And so, a lot of things that I've talked about here today are just through my experiences of coaching for almost 9 years. And then, yes, talking to all those people that I've interviewed, and then realizing what's needed when someone wants to make a change to their health and fitness. And it's not always do more, eat less, rinse and repeat. There's a lot more to it, and I try to bring all that to the show.
I like that a lot, and some amazing guests there actually as well. With them guests coming on the show, I suppose you're probably taking stuff away from yourself for yourself as well from that.
Oh yeah.
What kind of sort of insights have you taken from it? Is it transformed anything that you're doing, or is it just kind of added little bits?
Yeah. Well, when I went through my journey, the only guidance I met with a nutritionist once, because I was like, I don't want to wait until I've got my certifications to know what I need to eat, because that's going to be down the road. I'm like, I need some guidance now. So I did schedule a meeting with a nutritionist. When I went into her office, she sat down and says, "Do you know what paleo is?" I'm like, I have no idea. Now, granted, remember this is a while back, like 16 years now. And so I said, "No, I have no idea." And she said, "Well, okay, here's a book." It was a binder, and it had all this information in it. So she kind of started flipping through it and tell me what was in there. But she said, basically, you're only eating what a caveman would eat. I'm like, okay, I'll try it. And so I did keto. I did that. And then what happened was the foods that I enjoyed eating that were paleo was basically just meat and veg. Okay. So when I started just eating meat and veg, I ended up with my breath smelling weird and my pee smelling weird, but I was dropping pounds like nothing. And I started doing some research. I'm like, what is going on with my breath? What's going on with my pee? And then I realized I was in ketosis. I'd never heard of ketosis before. But for my weight loss, paleo and ketosis were the tools that I used to get there. And so, like when I wrote my book, I'm like, this is a tool. These are tools. These are tools I used, and they will get you there. Now, people will argue they're not sustainable, they're not this or not that. Fine, but they worked. So as I went into podcasting and I started interviewing different people, I was like, well, I don't want to just say I'm a keto person because there's more to this. So I started interviewing vegans. I started interviewing carnivores. I interviewed a raw paleo. I interviewed a vegan keto. I interviewed all these different people from different frames of reference, and all of them believe their diet is groundbreaking. It's the perfect diet. It's the way we should all eat, right? You'll hear them say that. You know, I literally had a guy come on, and I was reading his book, and it basically was a vegan diet. He renamed it something, and he called it groundbreaking. And so as I having a conversation with him, I said, well, this is pretty much just the vegan diet. He said, no, this is groundbreaking. I'm like, okay, bud. Yeah, whatever. But in interviewing all these folks, they all believe their way of eating is the best way. But what I know is there is no one best way for everybody. There's the best way for you. If you can't do it, you shouldn't do it. Okay. Yeah. If it's a temporary fix, that makes sense. There's times we go for sprints and we do things that we're not going to do again. It's like even in your training, you'll do 8 weeks of a certain type of lifting as a periodization just to change things up. Okay. And so it's the same thing with food. But if you're trying to build something sustainable, you need simple rules, because people like simple rules that make it easy for you to comply. So you'll do it. And here are the simple rules. Eat food. Real food. Real food is something that you would recognize as an animal or from an animal or from a plant. Okay. There are no cookie trees. There aren't. Okay.
I wish there were.
If it's a plant or animal, you can eat it. Now, the one stipulation is understand, paying attention to yourself, how certain foods affect you. So, should you eat dairy? If you can do dairy, do dairy. If it serves you, do it. It's from an animal. If it was a healthy animal, it's healthy product. Eggs. Again, people are worried about those. I'm like, well, if you notice that your cholesterol shoots way up because you're eating eggs and you don't want that, then stop eating eggs. If you don't like fish, don't eat fish. But you do need the omega-3s. So you're either going to have to supplement it, or you're going to have to make sure you're eating grass-fed, grass-finished beef, so you're getting enough omega-3. And so eat real food. If you walk into most grocery stores now and you look around, 95% of what's in there is not food. And so if it comes in a box, bag, jar, or can, be suspect. Look at the label. Is there anything in that you would say is not food? Not part of an animal or from an animal, or not a plant. And if it's in a box, bag, jar, or can, I would say 99% of it is not food. And you shouldn't be eating it at all. Granted, I like cookies. I'll eat a cookie. It's fine. But I don't think of that as food. Okay. I enjoy it, but that's it. So I have one and then I move on. So I think that's the core. Just eat real food. If you eat just meat and vegetables, maybe some eggs and a little bit of cheese, you're going to lose weight and you're going to feel great. Yeah, it's when we cram that other stuff in there that we start having problems.
Yeah, honestly, I love that approach, and it's refreshing to hear it, to be honest, because there's too many things out there. People are saying, you have to do this, you have to do that.
But they all agree, and that's what's so funny. I'll be talking to a vegan, and I'll tell the vegan, I say, why is the vegan diet the best diet? And they'll say, it's a whole food, plant-based diet. We're not eating crap.
Yeah.
You talk to a keto, they're like, it's a whole food keto diet, low carb diet. Okay. You talk to a carnivore, animal-based products, whole food. Okay. All the way across the board, they're all talking about the quality of their food and ignoring that there are bad things that still fit the mold. So if you're eating animals that were sick and not treated well, or products from animals that were not treated well, they're probably not the best thing for you to eat. So a standard factory-raised cow is eating grains. They're going to have just omega-6 fatty acids. They're not going to have any omega-3, which is what you need. And if your fish is farmed, it's probably going to have all kinds of chemicals and mercury and everything else that you don't need. So again, the quality of it matters. And that's what all of them are saying. High quality, whole food. then they decide to just exclude a whole food group, like that food group was the problem. Yeah. And that's okay. If that's how you want to be, if there's an ethical reason or just it makes you feel good that that's how you eat, Yeah. So there's people that like carnivores, like, I'm on a lion diet. Okay. And then they do that. I'm like, okay, well, if it works, it works. There's a guy who ate bacon for 30 days and lost 30 pounds. Not the way I would do it, but it worked. And, does he eat bacon every day, all day? No, he did that for a short period of time as a tool, lost the weight, and he's gone back to more of just a carnivore, keto kind of style of eating that works for him. And so I'm not opposed to using a particular diet as a tool. Just realize that if they've got you eating a lot of box, bag, jar, or canned stuff, even if it says the right thing on the label, it's vegan or it's keto, it's a cookie. It's still a freaking cookie, dude. And that's what your body's going to recognize it as. And so as you kind of just look at food, just say, is this meat and vegetables? And if you're mostly eating meat and vegetables, you're going to be fine. In fact, after I get off this interview, the place where I buy my steaks is going to be open, and I'm having steak for dinner tonight, steak and salad.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, that's such and it simplifies it so much for people as well, putting it in that context, in that way. It just makes it easier, because a lot of the information that's put out there on nutrition and stuff can be so confusing to people. Just,
everybody wants easy. Yeah, easy. Yeah. And again, I want you to make it easy, because again, when we're talking about self-management, the easier we make it for ourselves, the more likely we're to comply. But just realize there still is no one rule. So I could say I went keto, and you may not be able to tolerate eggs or dairy at all, milk. And so you might have to exclude those. You might do very well eating beans and potatoes. If I eat beans and potatoes, I gain a little bit of weight, just how my body acts. So I tend to avoid, I have beans from time to time, but they're not a staple like they are for a lot of other people. I don't eat rice. I don't eat much pasta at all. My wife made pasta last night, and I'm not going to not eat it, but that's not a normal thing. It's a different thing. So it's not that you don't eat those things. It's just that you understand, make your own simple rules, experiment with what works for you, and then make it sustainable by making it easy.
I like that. I like that a lot. Just going to move on to the wellness roadmap then. When did you write the book, Allan?
Well, I got laid off in December of 2017, and that's when the concept for the book came about. So from Christmas to New Year, the episodes that I recorded, solo episodes, they were the outline of my book.
Okay.
So I sat down, wrote the outline of the book I was going to write the next year, and I literally sat down and recorded the whole thing. So I had guidelines for what I wanted to do with the layout of the book. And then I hired a writing coach, and I hired an editor, and I hired a graphics person, and I hired this and that. And so I went through the publishing of it. It took me about 9 months to get, I'd say almost 11 months to get the whole book published. And so I sat there writing, editing, re-editing. I'd send something off to the editor, my editor I hired, and they'd rewrite stuff. I'm like, no, now it's wrong. You changed what I said. But it was a good experience, because my writing coach was really solid in, storytelling as a way of teaching. He picked up on the fact that I tend to have two voices: the voice when I'm telling a story, and the voice when I'm giving instruction. And so he said, you have to carry that forward in your book. You can't, once you start that, you can't not be that. And it's easy, because that's actually how I talk. And so I went through the book. It literally has 3 sections. The first section is basically setting foundations for yourself. So it's that commitment thing I talked about with my daughter, the commitment, and then self-awareness. And then, so it starts with commitment, then self-awareness, and then setting your goals. And so it talks about all of those. The middle part is the streets. So the first part was GPS. The middle part's the streets. This is the nuts and bolts of getting all of this done and how I did it. Again, At the time, I was a little naive. I thought how I did it was the right way. I was interviewing other people, but I still hadn't accepted that my way wasn't really maybe the best way, because all of my clients were doing it and it was working at the time. Till I had some, it's like, I'm not going to do that. I'm like, okay, then don't. We'll figure it out. And then we did. And then I realized every way works. You just have to figure out your way. And so then the last part is a part that I think is missing from a lot of health and fitness books, and it's the end. So what happens when you reach that destination? So what happened after I got to the Tough Mudder and I'd lost all that weight and I'd completely transformed my life? Well, I had to do a few changes. I had to make a few changes in my life because I was not the same person. And a lot of people forget that. And so I had to celebrate. And I celebrated by finishing that Tough Mudder with my daughter. And then I had to acclimate because I was now a different person. People looked at me differently. People treated me differently. I had people who weren't my friends anymore because I wasn't living the lifestyle I was living before. And I had new friends. And so I was different and I was being treated different. I had to accept that. I had to acknowledge that and take that in. And then I had to reassess where I wanted to go because you don't just stop. Life's not over. Like, yay, I won. Yeah, I still got years to live. So what are those going to be like? So set a new target. So redo your GPS. Where are you going? And then you just go. And so this is a continual cycle of reinvention and improvement that you get to do over and over again. And so that's why I call it a roadmap, because it really does, soup to nuts, gives someone the thought processes and then the what's to do a bit. Again, not exactly how I do it in Coach today. I've learned a lot since then, but it is a good primer to take you through if you're trying to figure it out. It's definitely worth it.
Yeah, I think it's stuff like that helps as well to see that other people have gone through it as well, I suppose. If somebody's just in that point now where they're just wanting to start, or they just realize that they want to change their life, turn their life around, often just seeing that somebody else has been there, done it, even if it is a slightly different way to the way they intend to do it themselves, it can just inspire people a little bit, kind of give them that little bit of an extra boost. But okay, what we'll do is at the end I'll grab all the links and we'll put the links to your podcast and your book and everything in the show notes. I wanted to just move on briefly and touch, because we haven't touched on it yet, is about life in Panama. What's life in Panama like, and how are you managing your work-life balance now differently to what you were before?
Okay, well, it's 100% different. I had a large beach house in Pensacola Beach. I was working corporate, and then I moved to the house when I got laid off because I was living up in Louisiana. So I was able to move to my house that I owned, kind of the dream house. I moved there, and I wrote my book. And after I wrote the book, I was doing my coaching and just looking at my budget and our spend rate, and we were spending more than I was making. And so we both decided we were going to go ahead and start looking. Panama has a lot of advantages for expats. People call themselves expats, and we're immigrants. We're immigrants. Just accept I immigrated here. No company moved me here, but I don't know why people have a problem with the word immigrant. It's a person that wants to live in a different country and chooses to go there and makes it happen. If you go there legally, then cool. But you're an immigrant. I'm an immigrant. Okay. Sorry, I had to do that little rant because
I agree.
I don't want to use the term expat, but some people will get frustrated that I'm not. Anyway, they make it very easy for people from the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, and South America to be here. Most of us are going to get like a 6-month visa, tourist visa, and then a lot of people will just do a border run, like to Colombia or Costa Rica, and then come back a few days later, and they start another 6 months. My wife and I, when we came down, we knew we were going to be here for a while. So we went ahead and got our residency. So we don't have to do that back and forth. So we're here pretty much full time. I'm on an island that is in a rainforest. So we have sloths and monkeys and poison dart frogs and toucans, and we're right here. Some of the most beautiful beaches you're ever going to see, and it never gets colder than 70 degrees, which is 21 Celsius, and it never gets hotter than 90 degrees, which I think is somewhere around 31 Celsius. So it stays in that range of temperatures. So for me, it's always comfortable.
Yeah.
Okay. It is humid. So if you're not used to warmer weather, when it's warm and it's humid, that's, for a lot of people, that's a lot. I'm okay with that. I lived on the beach in Pensacola Beach, so I'm used to warm and humid. I can do it. But the weather's pretty consistent. We do get a good bit of rain because we're in the rainforest, but that's good because that's where we get our water from. It is a third world country, so nothing works exactly the way you want it to or when you want it to. So it forces you to mentally slow down. It forces you to let things go. So like yesterday, I was on a coaching call. The guy was late. He messaged me and said he was going to be about 5 minutes late. I'm like, cool, no problem. I'll be here. My power went out, which means that my modem, my Wi-Fi went down. And so I'm trying to get my Wi-Fi back up before, because I don't know how long the power is going to be out. It popped right back on. So I'm like, okay. And so then I log on again on the call. We're talking for about 10 minutes and my power goes out again. So I'm like, okay, I can't count on the Wi-Fi. So I tether to my phone, get back on the call. So it's that sometimes it's that little frustration thing of power going out when there's no real valid reason for it to do it. Sometimes we don't get enough rain and we don't have enough water. Sometimes the citizens will strike. And the way they do strikes here is they block all the highways.
Wow.
And that means we don't get supplies. So we get no food, no gas, no cooking gas. So things can get a little tight here when they're doing that kind of thing. But like I said, I live in paradise. I wake up every morning. I go to work in gym shorts and usually a tank top. I dressed up for you. I still have gym shorts on though.
I'm in full gym kit. This is how I live my life. So.
Yeah, and that's it. It's like, yeah, I do have a separate office from Lula, so I can come over. I've got my studio set up, and so I have a nice little office where I can get my stuff done, coach my clients, and do my thing, do my podcasting. And then, my wife and I, about 3 years ago, bought this bed and breakfast called Lula's. The previous owners were EMTs, but they were down here running this bed and breakfast and another bar place. And when COVID hit and they shut down the country, they had no revenue, and they were dependent on that money for their livelihood. So they had to go back and get jobs. And then that gave us the opportunity to buy Lula's. It was in bad shape. They had not invested money in fixing it up. So we invested a good bit of money to fix it all up. And that took about 11 months. And then we reopened. So we've been open now for a little over 2 years. And things are going great. We have 6 rooms. So it's not like overburden. We have 2 staff that come in and help us with cooking and cleaning. And we get to meet people from all over the world and help them have a wonderful holiday here.
And do you enjoy the day-to-day running of it? Is that something you get involved much in, or?
Well, my wife and I have a pretty cool agreement. So what we do is we shut down for a whole month, and the 2 of us just go on our vacations together. So we'll take a whole month off, which is, for an American, is unheard of. Europeans do it all the time. And it's like, well, that's normal, right? Just take a whole month off and go. For Americans, that's very unusual. But we'll shut down for a whole month, usually in either September or May. And we'll go and travel and go see family and do what we want to do. But beyond that, my wife and I will take our own little vacation trips or things like that. So like my family reunion that I went to in August, she had a woman's trip that she just went on for a couple of weeks not long ago. So we spell each other. So she primarily runs it day to day. The only time that I'm super actively engaged in it is when she's away. So if she goes away, I'm now running 3 businesses. So at that point, my work-life balance is it's work, eat, sleep, work. And I did that for a few weeks, but she's back and she's running that. So I got this.
That's good. It sounds amazing, to be honest. It sounds like I'm jealous if I'm completely honest, because it just sounds just moving away from the normal sort of westernized way that you just get up, go to work, come home, and everything else, and just it's become part of your life. It sounds like, your work is your life, really. So it's the things you enjoy to do. You're in a beautiful place. You have time to take off and enjoy yourself. And your core work is about your fitness and your health and your wellness. It sounds really, really inspiring. Actually, it's really good.
And see, my wife has a vehicle only so she can drive guests, pick them up when she needs to. But I don't have a car.
Okay.
I walk everywhere I need to go. From one side of this island to the other is less than 22 kilometers.
Wow.
So I can walk anywhere I want to go on this island, and I don't need a car. My wife bought me an e-bike. I haven't even ridden it once because I just walk where I want to walk.
I love that. For anybody out there who would be potentially considering a big major lifestyle change like that, like moving abroad or opening a B&B or something along them lines, like a complete career change, etc. What advice would you give to them?
Well, nothing in your life is permanent, unless you're burning the boats. The statement of the general who said, "Now go burn all the boats because we're gonna walk out of here or not." You're not burning your boats. So if you decided that you wanted to live in Portugal and you sell most of your stuff, store the rest, and you go down to Portugal and you're down there for 2 years, you're like, okay, I've kind of had enough of Portugal. I'm going to go back home. Okay. If you have a particular career skill set and you say, okay, well, I'm going to go do this other thing that I'm also good at. You do that other thing that you're also good at, and that business fails, well, you go back to the other skill set you have if you can't use that skill set somewhere else. So what I know is if push came to shove and there was a major problem here and we had to leave, I can always get a job. And in fact, the fact that I've spent all of this time like living in another country and develop skills like public speaking and writing and interviewing, it would just make me better at any other thing I chose to do. The other thing that I've done that I think is fairly significant is I've reestablished what's important to me, and it's me and my daughter and my wife. Okay. And so if I went back to get a job, when it comes to the decision of what I'm going to do, it's going to be about us and what's best for us. And so it might not, it probably won't be going back into a corporate job, but I might go out and be a trainer, training people what I used to do because I'm very good at it. And now I'm better at training people. Or it might be that I just go and decide to be a waiter because I can talk to people and I can make them feel happy and comfortable and I'm good at service. And so I go out and get a job as a waiter. Do I make as much money? No, but I can feed my family. I can take care of myself. And that's at the end, all I really care about anymore. So just realize you're not burning your boats. You can always pivot. You can always go back and just, go live, go do you. I mean, just put me first, in your life. Say me is first. What's best for me?
All right, that's great advice. And actually, I think what holds a lot of people back is that fear, the fear that they'll fail, but they've got nothing to lose.
We all fail. My gym failed. Did that mean that I just decided I couldn't do anything? No, I'm still very good at coaching, and I'm also coaching other coaches, fitness coaches, as a business coach. So I'm really good at what I do. I know what I know, and so I'm teaching, and I'm trying to make an impact because if I'm helping people get healthy and fit, and I'm also coaching 40 other people that are helping people get healthy and fit, what did that just do to my reach? I could just have my podcast and I'm helping a lot of people, but I get on other people's podcasts now. I make a concerted effort to put in the extra work to reach out, pitch myself, get on other podcasts so I can help more people. And so from a legacy perspective, I love what I do because I'm making the world better. Yeah. Now, I'm not going to beat this. And I don't have any belief that I will. Did you know, I saw a stat this last week in one of the books I was reading. There are 1 billion obese people on this planet. Okay. And they're not all muscular. They're not all high BMI because they've got muscles. There are literally a billion obese people in this world, and I'm like, that's astronomical. I can't even wrap my mind around that problem. But I do know that what I teach can help the people who are listening and ready to make the changes they need to make.
Yeah, and I think, to be honest with you, I think the problem from an observational point of view, I don't have any data on this. This is just observational, and they might be a bit biased, but it's getting worse from what I see. There's less people interested in sports and less people interested in, and I think with all the good that comes with technology, I think there's a lot of bad that's come with it as well. It's made life staying in at home, and you throw COVID on top. What's happened with that? It's just made it so much easier for people to just stay at home, not go out, be comfortable, and not do anything.
Yeah. Well, part of it is this. It's happening earlier and earlier, and so you and I, we were not obese when we were kids. We were playing sports. We were lifting weights. We were doing those things because we already had the fitness and the comfort of our own body to step in and start doing those things. But when a kid grows up and they're obese before they're 10 years old, they don't get picked first for anything. And that stigma of knowing that they're not going to be good at a sport means they're not going to ever play a sport. And if you don't play sports as a kid, you're probably not going to play many sports as an adult. So the problem is there. That's where it starts. And then I think the other side of it is when we get overweight, it gets harder to do those things. So I loved volleyball. I loved flag football. I loved all that stuff. And I was very, very active in it for a number of years. And then I stopped because I got so busy. And then I put on weight and then I couldn't do those things. I went out and tried to play some volleyball and almost died. I was like, okay, this is terrible. And so I think it's a spiral downward. You start putting on weight, you get unfit, you don't want to do the things because they're hard or they're embarrassing, and you don't do the things, so you put on weight and you get less fit, and now you really don't want to do the things. And so it creates this cycle that just takes you down. And it's really hard to reverse that until you get the recognition and acceptance that if I'm going to change, I have to change myself, not just what I do. And you have to make the commitment that you're going to do it, and you have to get fanatical and obsessive with that being the priority of your life for at least a period of time to get yourself back right. And then it can happen. But it is hard, and it is a cycle, and it's a recurring cycle if we don't break it and do something different.
Yeah, I agree. And it takes people like yourself getting out there and putting the message out there and trying to support people and help people, really. And, they need somewhere to turn as well, don't they, really? They can't, a lot of people can't, or maybe can't's a strong word, won't do it by themselves.
Yeah, well, they need accountability. That's the first step, because again, they have to want it, though. They have to commit, because the reality is, like there was a mayor in the United States in New York that decided that sodas, sugary drinks, carbonated beverages were the problem that was creating the epidemic of obesity. And so he wanted to write a rule that no place could sell a Coke, or basically a beverage like that, a soft drink, that was more than 16 ounces. And the backlash against that was insane. So you're never going to make donuts illegal. You're never going to make, biscuits illegal, or fast food, or any of that. So people are going to still do it. And if you tried, they would fight you. They would fight you like you were taking away their youngest child. Yep. So there's more to it. We can't legislate this. We can't government fix this. This has to be fixed on an individual, one-by-one basis, where people wake up, they accept where they are, and they start taking the positive steps forward to fix themselves.
Yeah. That's all we can hope for, really, and hope that obviously that impact that has on the people around them as well, and their family and stuff like that. And then, that's
Yeah.
Hopefully
So
that's how it'll work and spread.
that guy I told you was laying on the hospital bed at 500 pounds. He lost 300 of them.
Wow.
Okay. And so he changed his whole life, and his daughters saw that transformation. So, yes, when you acknowledge where you are, and you start taking the positive steps forward with commitment, you get accountability because you're going to need it. You start working on self-management because you're going to need to make this as easy as possible. And then you become the person that just does these things. Then you'll move yourself forward. And so for me, that's the core steps of all of it. And if you're trying to skip some of those and saying, no, I'll just do the vegetarian diet or the Mediterranean diet, and that's good enough, I'll park my car a little bit further from the door when I go to work or go to the grocery store or the bar. I'll take a few more steps. That's not going to change your world. So, that may be all you can do. I had one client, she hired me and we were talking and she said, I get winded walking from my house to my car in the carport. And I said, okay, that's where we're starting. So I said, tomorrow when you go to your car, I want you to walk to your car, walk one lap around it, and then you can get in your car. And she did that. We were talking about it, and back and forth. And she said it was hard, but, now I'm on the third day. It was a little easier today. I'm like, okay, so tomorrow you do 2 laps around your car. And she said, this feels kind of silly. I said, but you see what we're doing here? And she's like, yeah. She started doing 2 laps. Within 3 weeks, she was walking for a half an hour around her neighborhood. She just needed to start where she was and do something a little harder, just a gentle nudge more. And that was enough to get her moving enough that she started feeling better, had more energy, had more stamina, and then had no problems.
Yeah. Well, for the listeners who are maybe feeling a bit stuck or a bit overwhelmed, especially the over 40s who have, got that position where they're really struggling with things. What is the first thing you would recommend really for them to, start making them positive changes?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you're familiar with the stages of change model.
I'm not actually, sorry.
Okay. So basically before you start doing anything, there's 3 other stages. So there's the pre-contemplation stage where you don't know that you have a problem. So you're not actively looking to do anything. So yeah, I'm big boned. That's why I'm so chunky. I'm just big boned. That's the kind of thing. They don't think they're overweight. I'm the skinniest fat person around, right? Everybody else around me is fatter than me, so I don't need to do anything. That's the mindset there. So they don't need to change. They don't believe they need to change, despite what their medical condition is telling them. Then there's contemplation, and that's where someone's thinking about it. It means, I know I have a problem. I really should lose 66 pounds. I really should do these things. Okay. They just don't know how. Okay. That's the start, because now you accept you have a problem. After contemplation, the next is called preparation or determination, depending on who you look at, but they're basically the same thing. And this is where you're making the decision. You're committing to what you're going to do. Okay, so you accept and then you commit to a plan of action. And then the next stage is action. Now, after that, we go to maintenance. So this is a cycle, but the problem with the cycle is it's not always continuous. People will get to pre-contemplation and fall back to, we get to contemplation and fall back to pre-contemplation. Sometimes they'll get all the way to determination and then they'll fall back. So I was an example of that. So what I did was I knew I needed to do something, got into contemplation, and then I got over here into preparation, and I saw this video show, this infomercial on a Sunday for Beachbody Insanity workout with Shaun T. And I'm like, that's perfect. I'm traveling, I'm in hotels, little gyms. He's not using any equipment. They're moving their body. They all look fit. They all look great. They're all having fun. I'm going to get that. I got those DVDs. Okay, so yeah, this long ago. It's in the actual DVD. And I ripped all of them and put them on my iPad. So I had all of them now on my iPad. And I was like, I can carry this with me. I can do the workouts anywhere. And then I said, okay, so it was Sunday and I was going to be flying out Monday night. So I said, okay, Sunday morning, Sunday morning, I got up and I said, okay, I'm going to do the benchmark workout. And I did the benchmark workout. And he's very encouraging. Shanti's like a great personality. He's dancing around everything. They're moving so fast. And I'm pushing myself through this thing. The next morning, I felt like someone had been beating me with baseball bats all night. I couldn't get out of bed. It hurt to reach over to my phone because I had to call out of work. And I wasn't sure that I was going to be even able to move around to make it to the airport to fly out that night. Okay, so what happened then? I didn't do a single one of those workouts. I fell all the way back to pre-contemplation, and I sat there and never did any of those workouts. When I turned in that that iPad to my company, all those videos were still on there, and not a single one of them had been watched. Not even watched. I didn't even just watch them to see what they were. I was like, nope, not for me. And so you don't want to go out too hard, and you don't want to go out too slow. And so that's why sometimes the guidance of a coach is the action you need to do first. So if you're in this contemplation stage and you know there's a problem, then when you get over to determination, that determination is what is the right coach for me? Because a coach is the accountability. They're also the guidance and the support that you need to be successful at the start. And then you're doing things, and that's when the rest of this can happen. So I would encourage you, if you're in that state of mind where it's like, I got to do something, this is when you start looking for the right coach. I may or may not be that person. If you're over 40, I still may or may not be that person. But be looking at what coaches do, what they know, their certifications, their skill sets, their personality. Is this someone who can help me do what I need to do? And when you find that coach, you take action, you commit to get things done, and then you work with that coach and get it done. And then you start building the rest of it. You join groups, you get involved with other people that are doing this. You go over and start working on self-management to make it easier and easier, removing friction and adding friction where you need to. And then over time, your values and habits align. And now you are that healthy and fit person that you were visualizing at the beginning.
If you are the right coach for some of the listeners, which you potentially are, where's the best place for them to connect with you at the minute?
Just come to my website, 40plusfitness.com. That's 40fitness.com. That has links to pretty much everything I'm doing. Is this going to go live before September 2nd?
It will do, yeah. And I'll put everything in the show notes as well. So
okay. I am going to be running a workshop from September 2nd to September 6th. So 5 nights. Europe's going to be a struggle because it's like 7 p.m. Eastern. So, but there will be replays. So if you sign up, you'll get put into a group and the replays will be there. So you may not be able to be there live on the Zoom, but you can catch the replays. But in this, I actually walk people through all the different elements of mindset and motivation to do that first bit, to where you're setting your mind, you're committing, and you're looking at what you want. And now we're breaking that down into a plan and then down into actionable goals. And so you'll have all that built out. And then we start working on you filling up what you need to stay motivated for the duration. So it really is soup to nuts, walking you through a lot of what we talked about today to get you really set up well to be successful in whatever you want to accomplish.
I like that. Yeah, I'll make sure everything goes in the show notes anyway. So there's easy links for people to get in touch with you or to find your website, etc. The 40 Plus Fitness, what is your current goals, or where do you see the future going with 40 Plus Fitness?
Well, again, me first. It's always going to be me first. I enjoy reading the books. I enjoy doing the interviews. I enjoy going on other podcasts. I enjoy helping people. And so what I'm doing right now is everything I want to do. I want to help more people. So, I will take clients on as I can, but sometimes my roster is full and that's a shame, but I'm not going to water things down just to touch more people or make more sales. For me, it's about the quality of what I do. And when someone comes on, I commit to them, usually as much, if not more, than they're committed to them, because I think they need that to start with. So I'll continue to coach. I'll continue to do this. We'll continue to run Lula's for at least a few more years. Like I said, I'm 58, so at some point I do see that we roll Lula's off because we've run it well. So it's an asset that we can sell. So at some point we probably will sell Lula's, and at some point my wife wants to live in Boquete at some point, so we might move to another part of Panama. So those things could happen, but the joy I have, the wonderful thing is doing what I do online, it really doesn't matter where I am. So if you need a coach, I'm still going to be here for a long, long time.
So through your journey, obviously we've covered a lot of stuff today, and you've gained so much knowledge and experience and wisdom through your journey. So is there one piece of advice that you wish you could go back and tell yourself at the beginning of this journey that would really help you along the way?
Don't get fat. Because I was very fit when I was younger. So if you're currently healthy and you notice something is pulling you away from the things that are keeping you healthy, fight that. Okay? If you're not healthy and you know it, then it's time for you to make the commitment to change. So you're one place or another. You're fit and you've got a lot of other things pulling on you. Fatherhood, job, this and that. If you let that pull you away from your health and fitness, you will lose it. So don't. If you're over here on the other side where, you need to do some work, well, you've got to commit. You've got to be fanatical. You've got to be obsessive. You've got to put yourself first. And so if you can do those things, regardless of which side you're on, that's that, again, where I let myself get fat. When I was fat, it's like I had to commit to fix it. So wherever you are, do that thing.
That's good advice. I like that. I'm probably gonna end the show here, roughly here. Is there anything else that you want the listeners to know or want to share with them, Allan?
No, I just want you to remember that you have the best gift right there with your body. If you give it the right things, it will heal. It will get healthy. It will get fit. And you'll have what you need to live the life you're supposed to live.
Really appreciate it. I appreciate your time, Allan, and it's been great chatting with you. Like I said, I'll just reiterate it. I'll put the links in the show notes so people can find you and interact with you on there. But really appreciate you coming on. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.